Tomorrow doesn't exist. Aroa blurted out the typical phrase, "I just don't have enough life in me." She said it with the simplicity of an everyday truth that, nevertheless, carries its weight. Some of her classmates nodded, with that premature resignation that sometimes crosses their gazes, as if they already knew what the deal was. On their faces, you could see that impatience, that pang of feeling time as a current flowing too fast, sweeping away moments almost before they can truly exist. That complaint just hung there, in the air. And it was right at that instant that I started pondering this whole time thing. Because if we don't understand this crap that steals our minutes, how the hell are we gonna make those minutes worth it? Time, kids. You see. It seems like a no-brainer, something we all think we understand, but when you try to explain it, things get messy. It flows, they say, like an invisible river that cuts through everything. We chop it up into hours, minutes, seconds, as if by dividing it we could control it, marking with clocks where we are in this vital sequence. Yet, you and I know that time, how we feel it, goes far beyond a simple tick-tock of the hands. Reading these lines will take you a few minutes. You're consuming it in your present, a present that's different from mine, because I wrote it perhaps days ago. But somehow, these words connect us across different moments. Ideas follow one after another, but what exactly makes us feel this precise moment of reading as the now? Is your perception of now, as you read, the same as my consciousness of now as I was writing? Is this whole thing measurable, or is it just a mental trip? Before, people like the Mayans, the Egyptians, or the Babylonians saw time as a never-ending circle, a spinning wheel. They focused on the returning seasons, the pendulum that always kept its rhythm, the moon and its phases. For them, time wasn't a straight line with a beginning and an end, but rather a constant repetition, a cycle they perhaps had to find a way to break free from. Then the Bible came along, and things got more linear, a beginning with God creating everything and an end with judgment. St. Augustine spoke of time as that continuous passing from a past that no longer exists to a present that slips away into a future that isn't yet. Time as a kind of thread connecting what we remember with what we still hope for. That's where our own way of feeling it, the subjective, comes in. And if St. Augustine put time in our heads, then there's Kant, yeah, that damn German who makes philosophy class a pain with all his text analysis, who in his critique of pure reason spoke of time and space not as concepts in themselves, but as pure a priori forms of our sensibility. Meaning, it's not something we learn from the world, but a fundamental structure of how the hell we perceive any experience. For Kant, time and space are the necessary frameworks for our senses to grasp reality. We could also talk about Newton, yeah, the one who had that damn apple fall on his head, who had a view that clashed big time with that idea of relative time. He defended an objective and absolute time, which flowed uniformly without anything affecting it. For Newton, time was objectively measured because it referred to that total time. Dividing it into past, present, and future was up to the observer, but space and time always go together, because when talking about temporal stuff, there's always a space where it happens. But 20th century physics, with electricity and all that jazz, changed the game. Einstein, with his famous theory of relativity, proposed that absolute time was bullshit. Relative time, anti-Newton, is based on the idea that we can't nail two things at once if we see them from different points. An hour only makes sense if you say where you're looking from. For Einstein, talking about time is talking about things happening together. Saying a train arrives at 5 is like saying the hand on the 5 and the train arriving are simultaneous. But that simultaneity is just a damn trick. Let's remember Vasco da Gama sailing around the world. When he came back, there was a whole thing about how many days the trip had taken. It wasn't the same counting it from the moving ship as from London, staying put. The sailor counted 90 days, and those in the port 88. And the best part is, everyone had their point. There's no universal time that's unique for everyone. Something Einstein, going back to his relativity, tried to explain by saying that time isn't absolute, but relative and subjective. That it can change, you know. According to Einstein, we float in time, but only forward. The speed depends on gravity and how fast you're going. The faster you go and the more gravity there is, the slower you move through time. Along that line of relativity and the mind, we could also bring in Bergson, a less annoying philosopher than Kant, who also pondered the matter. He said our mind creates, cuts, and pastes known chunks into this temporal river to act better. Time as duration is movement, and life is constantly renewed. That is, he doesn't see life and live time as something static, but as a constant flow where each moment adds to the previous one, transforming it. He defined time as what prevents things from hitting us all at once. Humans live in time and feel duration. Heidegger already said that we are temporal beings and that with our human glasses, we see time as an arrow or a river. But, hell, it's not that easy. With clocks, created back in the 14th century, time stopped being so abstract. The clock doesn't measure time, it only shows its constant passing, so we can divide life into chunks. There it becomes pretty clear, time and space go hand in hand. Space can be touched, time cannot. So, is time our invention? A dimension? Does time pass, or do we pass like in a boat? So, according to physics, all the past, present, and future stuff is already there, happening. There's no now that's more important than another. In fact, for pure physics, there's not even a clear difference between what was and what will be. And here's some talk about entropy, a concept from thermodynamics that explains how everything tends towards damn disorder. The past is usually more ordered, and the future, well, more chaotic, like when your toast burns, it doesn't magically go back to its initial state. But beware, this doesn't prove that time goes in a specific direction, it just describes how things usually happen statistically. Entropy gives us a clue to understand the physics of time, that inevitable tendency towards chaos. So time would be like a journey from order to chaos, something more complex than a simple river, and totally subjective. Each person lives their own temporal movie, their own now. Because even though we feel that time is an arrow moving forward, the fundamental laws of physics don't have that direction marked. For us, that arrow does matter, because our brain works that way, marking a before and an after. Studying time, from our human perspective, is trying to understand what the hell this present we're stuck in is. But for physics, that distinction between present, past, and future doesn't make much sense. It's like listening to a song. A single note doesn't make much sense, but if you remember the previous ones and give it an order, it's a melody. That is, a single note isn't worth much if you don't connect it with the others. That's how our brain works with time. The passage of time is how our brain relates things that happen at the same time. A kind of temporal machine that analyzes entropy and picks up traces of a more ordered past to create memories and think about a more disordered future. Our brain picks up clues of the past in the present. We cannot think without time, even if reality exists without our way of understanding it. To understand time, we have to understand ourselves. Time has a strong emotional charge, it gives us perspective in the universe. It talks about what doesn't last, what goes away. Time makes us suffer. Time is change. Then we have Eddington, a scientist who back in 1927 told us that time goes in one direction and without breaks, from the past to the future. Linear, the guy. As if we didn't have enough to try and understand the present, he was already showing us the way. Eddington said that we access the past with memory and experience, but, although we know it's there, the future is an unknown. That is, the past is fixed, unchangeable, and the future uncertain, but in between, this present sometimes feels like a prison. Time is subjective because our own way of being limits how we see it. Maybe time is just our thing, and trying to fully understand it is a waste of time. So our now is more of a personal sensation, not a fixed picture of reality. However, relativity tells us that space-time, as a whole, is indeed absolute. Each of us grasps time and space in our own way, but when you put them together, they're absolute. Space-time exists as a block where everything is already there. That idea of present is a construct of our minds, something that doesn't really have to do with how the universe truly functions. That's why it's said that, in a way, time, as we experience it, is an invention of our minds. So what does now mean then? Is it the same for you as it is for me? Why do we feel it that way? The now passes quickly. This instant isn't the one before or the one after. There's no meaning beyond just feeling it. Sequence, now, past, future. Direction. It starts in the fixed past, books, memories, etc., until the future that doesn't exist yet. If now is subjective, what does it mean? It means it's not time itself, but a mental process to compare this instant with changes. That's why you only think about the now when I mention it. In the end, this whole thing between how we feel time and how it actually is leaves us in a curious spot. If the now slips away from us, if the past is only what we remember, and the future is what we imagine, maybe all the power of being alive is right there, in that continuous damn passing. There's no meaning written in the stars, no predetermined path. But precisely in that absence, in that total freedom of a time that seems to be something we conjure up in our heads, there's brutal potential. The potential to shape this fleeting instant, to construct meanings that are brief but intense, knowing that every moment, even if the current carries it away, we have lived it, we have felt it. There's no predetermined final destination, but there's the constant opportunity to make the moments count, here and now, in this peculiar dance with time that we've invented. So, kids, I leave you with this to ponder: time is going to pass anyway, whether you like it or not. The thing is, while it's passing, you decide what the hell to do with your now. Don't let them steal a single second from you.